정체가 뭐야 But you 그래서 혼자는 나가 못해 crew
Taehyung, anyways, think about it, took off his hand from her. You guys wait for me, he said, and ran in the same way where Jenny and Jimin left. While looking at his back, frowning her eyebrows. My type? Falling for the bodyguard? Taehyung is dramatic. She came outside while Taeyong was still roaming in her mind, but she ignored it. As she came out, she saw him waiting for her while scrolling his phone, leaning against the car. As she saw him, she remembered the incident happened at the shopping mall and automatically her cheeks became red. She cleared her throat and walked front, maintaining a normal face. But she stopped and frowned her eyes when she saw a girl pass by him while staring at him from head to toe, but he didn't even look at her. He was so busy on his phone. She doesn't want to accept, but a jealous feeling washed over her. She walked to him and stood in front of him. Hello, Mr. Bodyguard, she said, gaining his attention. He quickly kept his phone back on his back pocket and said, Oh, you're back, princess. It's not new for him to call her princess, as she was the one who ordered him to call her princess, but today it feels strange to hear that from his mouth. He was having a cold and straight face while saying that, but she felt her cheeks burning. She cleared her throat. Drive home, she said, ignoring her light pink cheeks, and walked to her side, opening the door by herself and sitting in the passenger seat. He did a light nod and sat on the driver's seat. He was driving looking straight with a cold face. His sunglasses were on. He was driving with his one hand while his other hand rested on his tank. She still gazes towards him, but he didn't even look at her or said anything. Well, he's so cool though, she thought to herself and cleared her throat again. Today she felt strange with him, like all the time she used to be bossy and full of attitude, acting like a brat, but today she was feeling nervous and tiny in front of him. Obviously, she saw his side while beating the shit out of the robbers. She cleared her throat another time and turned to him. Well, she said, gaining his attention. He looked at her, still focusing on driving. Ryan, don't call me princess from now onwards. Jungkook, then what I'm supposed to call? He said with a cold voice. Ryan, just call me Ryan. Jungkook, I already told you before that I can't call my clients with their name. Ryan, it's fine, call me with my name. He looked at her and did a light nod. She nodded as he agreed. She turned her upper body front and sat silently in her seat. It was getting awkward for her, so she grabbed her phone, acting like scrolling it, but she was still nervous around him. Time skip night at 12 a.m. Her eyes fixed on the screen, one hand holding the remote, other hand picking the popcorn from the bowl and dropping in her mouth. She chewed the popcorn while focusing on the horror movie that was playing on the screen, her curtains flying because of the force of air. It was raining outside, her windows are open while the curtains keep flying, but all her focus was on the screen. She winded her eyes as she saw the ghost standing behind the lead in the movie. She covered her eyes immediately and peeked through between her fingers. The music grew louder as the ghost slowly walked to the person in the movie. And with a sudden noise, the ghost stood in front of the person and she shouted in the movie, which scared wine shit out of her. She immediately grabbed the remote, shutting the TV. She sighed in relief, but she heard a sound from behind. Tip top, tip top. It was raindrop sound. The curtains were flying, making a sound. The cold air brushing through her skin from the open windows. It was thundering, making a loud noise. She gulped and looked around. She started hearing noises and she was scared. Gosh, why did I even watch the movie? She slowly lay back on her bed and covered herself with a blanket, but she was still scared. She felt like someone watching her, just like the ghost in the movie. She covered herself and closed her eyes tightly. I'm scared. At Jungkook room at 12:15 a.m. Jungkook was reading a book sitting on the bed. He was having a cold face. As usual, he looked up when he heard a knock on his door. He frowned his eyebrows thinking who it can be. He winded his eyes thinking that maybe Ryan is in danger. He kept the book aside and walked to the door. He opened the door and as he expected, it was Ryan standing with her pillow. Her face is pale like she's scared of something. Hey, you were sleeping? She asked it. He nodded as no. Are you okay? Is something wrong? No, everything is fine. I'm just. He frowned his eyebrows. Jungkook, what happened? Ryan, it's raining outside. I hate thunderstorms. I'm scared of it. And. She hesitated to say. He waited for her to complete the sentence. And there is a ghost in my room, she said, biting her lower lip while shuddering. What? He said. She nodded and said, I'm saying the truth. Jungkook sighed and said while moving back. Jungkook, first come inside, he said in a cold tone. Brian, I'm saying true. I know there is a ghost. He kept a done face. Jungkook, what did you watch? Did you watch a horror movie? She winded her eyes, thinking how did he know and awkwardly smiled. How do you know? Jungkook, of course I know you watched a horror movie. That's why you're feeling like you have a ghost in your room. And that's not true. Brian, but I can't sleep there. Jungkook, okay, you sleep here. I will go to your room then. Brian, but he turned back and looked at her. Ryan, I can't sleep alone. I'm scared of the thunder sound, she said, shuddering. Jungkook, so what I'm supposed to do? Ryan, well, can I sleep on the couch in this room while you sleep in bed? He thinks for a while before saying. Jungkook, okay, but you are my client and this is your home, so sleep on the bed. I will sleep on the couch. Ryan, no, it's fine. I can sleep there. He walked to couch, ignoring her words. Jungkook, good night, he said before laying there and scrolling his phone. Cold eyes, she mummed while looking at him who was scrolling his phone. She can only see his forehead and hand which was scrolling the phone. While shooting glares at him, she lay on the bed, keeping the pillow beside her which she brought from the room. But as he can't see her face, he just lay on the couch scrolling his phone. To ignore the awkwardness, she also scrolled her phone which she brought along with her pillow. Time skipped night at 1 a.m. She felt her eyes get heavier, but then she peeked her head looking at him. She saw him sleeping. She removed the blanket from her body and walked near the couch. Is he sleeping? She questioned herself even though she can see him sleeping peacefully, his phone resting on his chest. Probably he slept while scrolling. His face was cute while he was biting and licking his lower lip. She giggled quietly. He looks cute while sleeping. She admired him as he looks cold and mysterious always, but while sleeping, he's just looking like a kid. That's when a mischievous swing plastered on her face. She went back and grabbed her phone from the bed. Mr. Bodyguard, stay still like that. She giggled, clicking his photos from every angle. He was pouting and licking his lip in his sleep, looking so adorable at the same time. Oh, adorable muscular bodyguard. She giggled while taking his photos, but then he moved on the couch. She winded her eyes and quickly went to bed, covering herself, pretending to sleep. He looked around with half-asleep eyes. He looked in her direction and walked near her bed. She could feel his presence but didn't open her eyes, pretending to sleep. She gulped when she felt him bending down, but he just bent to turn off the light. After turning off, he stared down at her. He looked at her for a few seconds before walking to the couch and sleeping on it. After she felt like he was gone, she opened her eyes and peeked her head, finding him sleeping. She laughed silently while looking at the photos. Time skip. While everyone was focused on class, she was in her own world looking out of window. She found him leaning against his car and smiled knowing he was just waiting for her. She checked the time and still 15 minutes left for her class to end. Too early, she mumbled while looking at him through the window, but then she frowned her eyebrows when a girl walked to him. He lifted his head from his phone. Van was curious, thinking why the girl came to him. She also handed him a paper. Van winded her eyes, but then Miss Shin, the professor called her. She quickly turned her head and saw the whole class looking at her. She stood up. The professor kept his hand on his hips. She looked at him while he said, "Where were you looking at, Miss Shin?" "Professor Jin, I was just..." She smiled awkwardly looking at the professor. He shook his head being done, while Taeyong sprinkled at Wine knowing very well. "Professor Jin, focus on class, Miss Shin," he said. "Wine, yes, Professor Jin, good. Now sit down," he said, and Wine sat. He turned back to board while teaching again. She sat back but again glanced at the window and saw him alone leaning against the car, scrolling his phone. Where did she go and who is she? A few minutes later, he kept his phone on his pocket and looked towards the entrance, waiting for her to come out, while other students walked out happily, and after a few seconds later, she came out with a poker face. He raised his eyebrows. He has sunglasses on. She walked to him with an uninterested face. She stood in front of him. She didn't say anything, so he said, breaking the silence, "Should we leave?" He said. She folded her arms to her chest and said with a cold tone, which is unusual, "You want me to stay here forever?" She said, walking to the passenger seat. He looked at her with a straight face and said, "I didn't mean it." I stopped my voiceover from here past to read.